So first, let me introduce my special guest co-host. Let's move the camera. Lawrence, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good.
So, Professor Francis Steen, he's an acclaimed communications professor here at UCLA. He teaches entertainment as an implicit pedagogy. That's the course I'm actually taking with him right now, as well as many other courses in the communications department. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Professor.
So I've been at UCLA for about 10 years now, and I teach these classes that look at how the media and the mind relate.
Wow. So you've been teaching here for 10 years. I'm guessing you already have your tenure, right?
Right.
Excellent, excellent. And so what courses do you teach here at UCLA?
So I teach a course called Decoding Media Strategies, which is about advertising and news entertainment strategies for getting people's attention. And then I teach a course on social technologies, social media and the new technologies, internet, social networks, that kind of thing. And I also teach a course on games called The Gaming Mind.
Wow.
On online games.
So, you know, I've been taking your class, Entertainment as an Implicit Pedagogy, and, you know, one of the interesting things we've been talking about is reality, perception, dreams. So tell us, what do you think is do you think dreams are important to us? Do you think we should actually reflect on them?
Right. So in this particular class, we really looked at the kind of multimedia power of the mind itself. So one of the amazing things about the mind is that when we go to sleep at night, without even wanting to, we produce what is essentially movies. Now, they're not necessarily full 1-hour movies, but if you're a bit disciplined and you keep a notebook by your bed, which I ask my students to do, and they write down what they remember very first thing in the morning. You frequently have, pretty amazing stories that come out of this. It's really entertaining to hear what people dream, and often surprising even to the dreamer. That how did my mind cook up this stuff, right? And one of the interesting things about dreams is that they're not just things that you remember. Like, it's not like you experience something exciting and then you replay that in your dream, right? Dreams really are almost like CGI movies, like computer-generated graphics. So you take stuff that you've actually never happened to you, and you actually manufacture it in your dream. So you have, you go to places where you haven't been. You combine events that have never happened to you, and you actually make movies. So it's pretty incredible technology, and that's just our minds asleep.
Wow. So how do you think our brain is doing that? It seems almost extraterrestrial when you really think about it, like that our brains are automatically creating these movies without us even consciously thinking about it.
Right. So you could say, in some sense we're conscious, right? Because we can remember, and the experience that we have in the dream is sort of the experience that we have when we actually experience something. In fact, one of the very interesting features about dreams is that most of the time we have no idea we're dreaming. So the experience in the dream is sort of what dream researchers called they're sort of pathological, right? It's like you're in a state where you don't track the difference between what comes from your memory and what comes from your senses. So we experience the dream as if it's real, and part of the interesting part of the reason for investigating dreams and understanding dreams is that it tells us something really deep about how the mind works and how the brain works, right? So part of what's happening now in neuroscience and cognitive science is challenging this vision of the brain like a computer. That's been kind of the dominant vision, for 50 years, right?
Absolutely.
And now we're starting to see that the brain does these amazing things that, computers still can't do. Like if Hollywood wants to make a CGI movie, a movie that, basically a movie composed out of frames, right? It's got to render these overnight. Like it takes hours to create them, right? Even with the most powerful computers we have now.
True.
The brain does it on the fly.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. On the fly. It's very, very impressive technology.
I can't understand how it's even possible when you really think about it. But then again, that's humans for you. That's human nature, and it's probably been going on since the beginning of us.
Yeah. There's, if I can just interject, there's even evidence that other mammals have something similar going on. Like, if you look at the dream state was first discovered in cats back in the 50s in France. And, it looks like they're having the kind of experiences we have, Right.
That's amazing. So they were like sleepwalking. How did they actually know the cats were dreaming?
Well, so first of all, they didn't. They were just monitoring the brain waves. So the dreaming brainwave looks like the waking brainwave. But you have two kinds of sleep, right? So you have the resting sleep, the non dreaming sleep, and then you have the what's called REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. And for weeks, months, they had been recording these cats in the REM state and not realized that the cats were sleeping.
Wow.
Right? So they actually went back in their logs and said, wow, here's this new, they called it a paradoxical state, because the brainwave was like awake, but the cat was paralyzed. In fact, you're more paralyzed when you're dreaming than when you're not dreaming during sleep.
That's amazing. So have you seen the movie The Matrix? Let's shift on now from dreams to, I guess, reality, or, that's, I guess, another question. But have you seen the movie?
Yeah, so I've seen the movie, and I think it's a really interesting experiment or sort of, thought experiment in a way, right? It's actually a dramatization of a famous thought experiment in philosophy, which is, how do you know that you're not a brain in a vat? How do you know right now, you're not one of these people in the Matrix hooked up to a computer, and the computer feeds all this information into your brain that makes you think that you're doing something, much like you do when you're dreaming, right? Except now you're awake. And the whole thing is just synthetic, right?
Right.
That's the really fun thought experiment that they explore in The Matrix.
But do you think it's actually possible that maybe we are in the Matrix?
Well, I mean, there's no reason. We don't have any sort of computer technology that could generate the fidelity of reality that the mind generates, right?
Yeah.
So the thing about reality is that. What we think of as perceptual reality, in other words, the reality that we see around us, right? So we see the room, we see each other, right now we're seeing, the radio, the studio, and so on, right?
Right.
So normally we think of that as that's a reality that's outside of ourselves, right? It's just sort of the real thing, located out in space, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you reflect on this a moment, that can't really be what's happening, because it's not as if you're sitting inside your head and looking out your eyes as if they were windows and seeing something outside, right? No, the light is coming into your eyes. It hits the retina, goes up the optic nerve, and somehow creates reality, right? So reality is a brain state, right?
Yeah.
Generated reliably, right, by the brain. It's not frivolous or sort of arbitrary, right? But it's a brain state.
Does that bring into question if we all see the same reality?
Well, the construction of reality is a result of millions of years, hundreds of millions of years of natural selection of evolutionary processes, right? So they're kind of species specific, right? So a dog is going to have a very different reality from what you have, right? But you and I, we're going to have very similar realities. We're going to be more or less the same thing,
right?
There's some idiosyncrasies, some quirks, right? Like you have, like I'm slightly blue-green colorblind. It's not very noticeable, but
yeah,
right. So you have little things like that.
How about when people say we're not sure if if humans see all the same, if everyone is actually seeing the same blue, like maybe my blue is different than your blue, but we both identify it as blue. Has that been disproven?
Well, so we don't have a technology at the moment to directly monitor the content of consciousness. Right? We just science still doesn't understand consciousness.
Right.
So we're not able to disprove it, but you can look at all of the underlying color-sensitive pigments and so on in the retina, right?
Right.
And this is genetically determined stuff that we share.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Professor Francis Steen. He's an acclaimed professor here at the UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, in the Communications Department. It's been an honor having you, and we're going to take a quick break and continue the interview.